So, greetings, friends and followers. This is Nurses Talking, and I am Del Barzi. As always, if you like what you see and hear, subscribe, leave us a comment, let us know what you think. Here on Nurses Talking, we speak to nurses anywhere in the world and at any stage in their nursing journey. And today I have the very, very great pleasure of welcoming Victoria Hinds out of the United Kingdom. Victoria is a nurse, she's a narrative advocate, and she is a number 1 best-selling author on Amazon. The book is Rookie Nurses, Buckle Up. I love the title, Victoria. She says that through her writing and her work with the Unvarnished Press, which you founded, Victoria speaks openly about the realities many nurses encounter after graduation, which is workplace dynamics, resilience that's required, the strength it takes to navigate the profession when life itself has already demanded so much. Her mission is clear to arm the next generation of nurses with wisdom and agency that textbooks leave out. So, welcome, Victoria. I am looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
My absolute pleasure. But my the first thing I always want to know is why. So why? What brought you to nursing?
Oh, so that's quite a nuanced answer. So I always had a compassionate nature. Um, I was always the one looking after pets and animals and nurturing, family members and things. I come from a family of nurses as well. My father, in particular, came to the UK. So was born in Barbados, came to the UK at the age of 16, trained to be a nurse and had a very successful career doing so. I've got two sisters, and my dad always said, if any of you are going to follow in my footsteps, it will be you, Victoria. But then I hit my teenage years and I said, absolutely not. And went off and did the exact opposite. And I went into business quite successfully. And I just didn't have that sense of fulfillment that I was craving. And I didn't quite know why. So as a mature student, I thought, now or never. Am I going to spend the next kind of 30, 35 years of my career in this space, in this,
Yeah.
business space that that's not fulfilling me? And I decided no. And then I buckled up, as it were, and I did my nurse training. So partly experience of other nurses within my family, and partly just knowing that I had this kind of caring need that needed to be shared, if you like.
Yeah, yeah. So you came to this kind as a second career. What challenged you?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So going into the degree program, I think I underestimated completely the level of academia that was required. I'd got my A levels and things, but I was a youngster then, and it was sort of just fun to be at college. So going into it as a mature student was very much okay. This is the real world now. This is the level of expectation that I now need to try and achieve, not just achieve it, but maintain it. So the academic perspective was certainly a challenge, and I think the different environments that you work in as a student nurse. So I'm from a very rural area in the UK, and our placements are very diverse, which is great for our learning and our core foundation. But from a community mental health placement, for example, into acute medicine in a hospital, rehabilitation. So being exposed to those different environments was certainly a challenge, and you have to learn to adapt, and you have to learn adaptability quickly and efficiently and effectively. So those are my main challenges, I think.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And we come into it not really knowing, which is where your book comes in. Your book says rookie nurses buckle up. I sort of that title really. But it doesn't sound like a traditional nursing book. So what made you decide to tell that story to pick the title?
Sure. So when I picked that title, I was aware of the fact that it might be considered a little controversial because I know we talk a lot about resilience in nursing and what that actually means.
Mhm,
So there is an element of I'm saying to the student nurse, you're going to have to buckle up to get this done. But what I
mhm.
wanted to highlight in the book was you are going to face challenges and extreme challenges, but there are ways to cope with them. There are ways to deal with them. Um, I was saying to you previously, though, that writing the book, I journaled throughout my entire student nursing journey. So when I decided, right, I'm actually going to put this pen to paper, I referred back to my notes, and that was quite insightful. But what I didn't realize was, in hindsight, which is such a beautiful thing, I actually experienced quite a lot of the things that are very prominent in our nursing conversations at the moment. And I thought, actually, I was living with moral injury then. That was compassion fatigue. Oh my goodness, the way that I was feeling then, that's because I was working in a bullying and in a bullying culture in a toxic environment. At the time, I didn't have the language to attach to that.
Yes.
I didn't have a way to work through those things. So for me now, I want the book to kind of be a reflection of exactly what happened to me, but what emotionally what the ramifications of those things were. Had I have known then the kind of the labels that I could have attached to it and the coping mechanisms and strategies that are available to deal with that, I might be a very different nurse today. So
Yeah.
what I want is for any of the student nurses that pick up the book and have a read, or anybody that wants to join the profession, I really wanted it to be an honest reflection of exactly what happened to me, but also say for those nurses now to recognize that might be happening to me. Okay, how do I deal with this? Who do I speak to? Where do I go? And for them to feel that their voice is heard and that they are not alone.
Exactly, exactly. And you just answered a question I was going to ask, actually, because I was going to ask you what do you want people to feel when they finish reading your book? So kudos, you just answered the question for me.
In a perfect world, I can expand on that slightly. I think I want them to feel hope. I've had a turbulent journey in my nursing journey, in my professional career. I can talk about that later on if you so wish. But I want them to feel that nursing it, it is a profession and it's a very rewarding sector in which to work. You need the tools and the equipment to navigate some difficult challenges in order to remain true to yourself and to provide the best level of patient care. I'm sure there are some nurses that might read it and think, I absolutely don't want to be a nurse after some of the things that I've heard in that book.
Yeah.
But I also want nurses to be able to read it and think, I'm prepared for the challenges. I'm prepared to work through what is required of me to become a professional healthcare profession. So
Mhm.
hope is one thing I really do wish for some of the readers to come away with.
So, and you kind of challenge the idea of the nursing family. And so I wonder, why do you think that that phrase sometimes hide the realities?
Sure. So it's not until really the book project started to launch that I started to network more within the professional healthcare space. And I was just so not shocked, but I wasn't aware of how many nursing professionals were experiencing some of the same things. And then I started to see these common three themes coming through. And I realized that actually this is, and we were discussing earlier, it's not just national, it's global. And the things that we're feeling and experiencing are happening on a global scale. There's systemic failure everywhere, and it looks different in every country, in every
Mhm.
institution. But the root fundamentals of systemic failure are there everywhere. So I think just having that safe space in which to discuss with another professional, because you can't always do that within your trust, within your actual position of employment. But I just want everybody to know that there are connections and communities out there that you can safely discuss and have discussions with that will, without fear of reprisal and without that kind of fear of fallout with the institution that you're currently working in. In a perfect world, I wish that we could all have these conversations in the workplace to each other. But unfortunately, there are still many, many barriers to overcome before I think that's going to become, a widely accessible option.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that we really need to talk because unless we articulate it, we're not going to do it, and we're the ones who are going to have to do it. So you also, you're also speaking to leaders, to nursing leaders. So I want to, but what do you want? What would you have liked them to understand, leaders to understand about the emotional reality of being a new nurse? Because you know what, a lot of those leaders have been new. So when did we forget it? And how is it we're having such difficulty relating to?
I hear you loud and clear with this one. So towards, after about 5 years of my career, I started to move into middle management. And I think, we all go in as rookie nurses and we all go and think, I want to change the world. I literally thought I could change the NHS. I'm a lover of systems and process. And having been in business before, I was like, I can do a spreadsheet that's going to work this out, and we can work out acuity and risk here, and we can mitigate this, and the NHS is doing things back to front, it's upside down. I'm going to streamline them. And then you realize that you are this teeny, teeny, tiny cog in this huge machine. And so the
Yeah.
only way to really make a difference and to be heard is to move up that career ladder. But when I went into middle management, then you've got these external pressures coming to you, and then you realise that actually this is a business. It's still an organisation. There's still a bottom line. There's still a
Mm-hmm.
P&L. There's still
Mm-hmm.
KPIs, and trying to keep your compassion to the level that you once had when you're then having the pressures, the system pressures put on you. And that was just when I was in middle management. So when I look at the CEOs of these kind of institutions, and I think what pressures are upon you that that listening is no longer the number one important factor in your job role, because it should still be listening. After the book, I actually had a colleague of mine reach out. I've worked with him many years ago. He said, Victoria, I had absolutely no idea some of the things that you go through. And he's like, and now I'm a leader and mentor, and I didn't know this. So I'm absolutely going to change some of my working practices because you've given me so much insight. So for me, it was so reassuring and so validating that not only are the students listening to it, but actually the mentors of students are saying, okay, maybe I could be doing this a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure I supported my student. I recognise my student having gone through that particular scenario. Did I
Mm-hmm.
support them enough? I'm not sure. So I just hope that the leaders and mentors, it gives them the opportunity to ask themselves that question: Am I doing
Yes.
enough?
Yes, 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 indeed. Yes, indeed. Because, very often sometimes I think we even recognize it, but we just don't have the tools ourselves because we did not have the mentor, you know. And so you're trying to develop those tools at the same time as you're trying to nurture someone. It can be difficult. Okay.
Absolutely. I think for me, again, when I started networking, I kind of got this group of student nurses or newly qualified nurses, and they're kind of all in this bubble, and we're all having really similar conversations and sharing our experiences. And then I've got all of these connections that are high profile leaders and mentors. And I'm kind of thinking to myself, well, you've asked me this question, you've answered it perfectly. Why aren't you answering it together? Why aren't you sitting in the same room having this conversation? So I'm hoping that I can fundamentally just try and bridge that gap a little bit. And I've already got students where I say, actually, do you know what? If you're not being supported with your mentor, I've got this great connection that you can talk to over here. And then I put them in touch with each other.
Yeah, 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 and that's a really big point because really, even someone who could be considered a very good mentor is not necessarily a good mentor for everyone. It has to be a fit. It has to be a fit. Otherwise, I like to say, otherwise your mentor can become your tormentor.
Yes, that is so true. That
Yeah.
is so true.
But so to jump ahead a little bit, you founded the Unvarnished Press. And I like what I saw about that because it says, you said, the era of the official narrative is over. The truth narrative starts here. I love that. So after you come out with like guns blazing, this is who I am, okay?
It's pretty straight to the point, to be honest. And I kind of needed it to be because I need our healthcare professionals that want to come on board and work with us to know that they're in a safe space and it is okay to share our stories, irrespective of whether those are positive and negative. So we have to learn from our negative experiences. If not, we're never going to grow. We're never going to develop. So for me, when I was writing my book, I did a lot of research on other nursing books, other nursing memoirs. They were all very, very positive. Yeah, there were some heartfelt moments, some really gut wrenching, empathetic moments, usually surrounding kind of death, hospice care, the emotional turmoil that we carry with us for
Yeah.
the patients we care about. But I really wanted nurses to feel that actually it's okay to talk about systemic failure. It's okay to say that bullying does happen in our workplace. Because if we don't start talking about these things openly, we're never going to change them. We're going to keep them in this box with the lid closed and just carry on pretending that it didn't happen. So I
Yeah.
think from my publishing perspective, it was very much I wanted to be able to tell my truth, still have the positive spin on it, because I truly champion the profession of nursing and would encourage anybody even thinking about it to explore it and try it. But in the same light, I'm going to say, I'll probably repeating myself, but in the same light, be aware of the challenges that you might face and know that there is a support network out there. So
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
the truth narrative is very much tell your truth. It's okay to tell your truth.
It is okay. It is okay. And because otherwise we're acting as though everyone's experience is the same. Um and it isn't. It cannot be. In many cases, it cannot be. And so stuff that I could probably cope with, or someone else may not be able to cope with, and vice versa. We've got to be able to
Yeah.
talk about it and explore it. So here is the question that I have, because you know what? We talk about being truthful and being open and stuff like that. But if you if you are a rookie nurse walking into a healthcare situation, walking into a hospital unit or something for the first time, can be very intimidating. And the whole atmosphere can be very intimidating. So if you're a rookie nurse and you're trying to advocate for yourself, how can people do that while still respecting the profession? Because very often when you speak up, you're seen as being disrespectful, as being too challenging, as being too. What language can people use?
Absolutely. I was so lucky that in my first placement I had a very astute mentor, and she also gauged me and my character very quickly. And she knew I wasn't going to be submissive, and I wasn't going to be compliant.
Yeah,
I'm not going to say I got myself in trouble, but I made myself known, put it that way. And she could see that in me, and she could see the fire in my belly as well. So if I didn't necessarily agree with the way that something was being done, I I would always ask why. Why are we doing it like this?
yeah,
And she taught me from a very young, from right at the start of my journey, how to professionally challenge. And she said, Victoria, you can't. Sometimes you can come across a little bit antagonistic in the way that you ask the question. You need to learn to frame it. I'm like, okay, I don't know what you're talking about. What do you mean? And she
yes,
said, always, if you are going to challenge something, always have an evidence base. And I was like, what do you mean? And she said, research what it is you're asking the question. So if you're going to go in and challenge something, a procedure or policy, you need your evidence base, and then turn around and say, I'm asking this question because current research states that, if we were to change this, we might be able to achieve this. Once you've got that evidence base, the professional that you are talking to has an instant level of respect for you. You're not coming at me with this is wrong, that's wrong. It's not a fruitless, unresearched opinion. Actually, you're
exactly.
coming to me with an evidence-based question that I now need to professionally respond to. So
Mm-hmm.
for any student nurse going in, if you are a little on the hot-headed side, always take a breath before you go in. Never write an email when you're a bit. Just don't do that. Just literally don't do that. But if you do need to challenge somebody professionally, just take that breath, take that thought, do a little bit of research. I'm not saying you need to go and read 10 academic papers. I'm just saying know something about the question
What's
you're
it?
about to ask so that you've got a professional conversation to move forward with.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And you're right, because sometimes our buttons can get pushed just a little too much.
Yeah. When you draft one out and then you try and maybe press the X to cancel it and your default press is send. Yeah, don't
Yeah,
don't email.
don't, I hear the word, you hear the words coming out of your mouth, and you're like, put them back, put them back. They don't come back. All of this that we've been talking about, Victoria, also adds up to something that has we have also talked about a lot, and that is burnout and overwhelm and lack of self-care and all of this kind of thing. Now we are beginning to speak about it within the profession because, as we said earlier, when I became a nurse, I think if I ever mentioned self-care, first of all, those two words did not go together. But even if they did, and I mentioned, I think someone would have looked at me like, "Who do you think you are? What do you mean you wouldn't care?" So, one thing I want to know is, well, a couple of things I think I want to know. We're getting across to younger nurses that self-care is the crux, really, of what we ought to be doing, because we can't take care of others if we don't take care of ourselves. And I think the other question I want to ask is, what it means to you, and what do you do?
Okay, so self-care to me is actually just debriefing. It's having that moment of thought where you've left a really difficult shift, and I was a single mum when I was doing my student nursing, and I'd be running around to pick up my son and get him fed and to his activities and all the rest of it, and you just never stopped. But self-care to me is literally that decompression, and it could be 5 minutes sitting in the car, it could be an extra 5 minutes under a hot shower, but it's really processing how I feel about whatever it is that potentially stressed me out or caused me anxiety in that day. Journaling for me, when I've done it all throughout my career, and if I go back now, I read some of my notes, and some of them are indecipherable. Even, sometimes I used to write notes at 2 o'clock in the morning because when you wake up and you've got that
Yeah.
oh God, did I do that? Or
Yeah.
get it on paper, just get it out of your body, however that looks like to you. I know a lot of nurses that live and die by meditation. Some live and die by exercise. Whatever self care looks like to you, embrace it. Don't be shy of it. And I think it's about knowing that it's okay that that can happen in a really short space of time. It can be 5 minutes. It can just be before walking through the door at home, just taking 4 breaths, 4 really deep breaths before you walk through that door. But I think if there's something that has emotionally charged you, you have to get it out of your system. Sometimes that's putting a complaint in. Sometimes it is writing that email. Sometimes it's just journaling your experience. Sometimes it's having a chat with a loved one that you trust. But for me, self care is decompression, is getting it out. So
Yeah.
that works for me. But there
Yeah.
are so many tools and resources out there now that I wish I knew I had
Yeah.
then. And then again, perhaps I'd be a very different nurse if I started practicing some of those things years ago.
Yeah, perhaps you would. But we wouldn't have this Victoria Hinds.
You wouldn't have this version.
This is probably the version that we really need. Yeah, well, I always ask, I make sure and ask every nurse about self-care because, again, I feel like it's something we need to articulate. Um, Otherwise, we kind of like go along with the program, and then maybe a month later we think, oh, well, wait, what did I do for me? If we even think that, right? I knew I went along in life for a long time without realizing that I needed to put myself in the equation, actively put myself
Yeah,
in the equation, and not just go along with doing everything for everyone else, which is not
yeah.
bad, but So
Can I ask you a quick question, Dale?
absolutely.
So a lot of the conversations, as you said, that we're all having now is about moral injury and compassion fatigue, etc., etc. And we talk about that self care. And I think there's a lot of work being done at the moment for nurses to realise that it's our responsibility to self care for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also a level of responsibility from the organisation. So, in your years of experience, have you seen that within an organisation perspective, with them encouraging us to self care? Have you seen that develop, or is it still something that's not really addressed?
It's still something that I would say is not really addressed. It's beginning to be addressed, but nowhere near in the way that it should be, I think. If I go all the way back to the beginning of my nursing career, for example, you know, for example, as I said, no one mentioned those two words didn't even go together, right? And what I see as I grew and went along, as you become part of, let us say, as the management part of it or the leadership part of it, your focus, let us say we're talking about staffing. Your focus is on making sure that we have enough staff. And so, even though for example, I've watched it happen where we guilt nurses into coming in, right? We guilt people into staying an extra shift or staying an extra 4 hours. We guilt people into, missing you know what, you missed your lunch today. I'll bring you a donut. Well, we didn't bring you anything healthy. We didn't do anything that really cared for you. We did something that wasn't even symbolic. It was just a token. Um, and a lot of that, I think, still goes on. I do know that people are talking about it more, and maybe things are changing. I know people who are trying to change things what is the word I'm looking for? Facility level, that kind of thing. But it's a long way to go. It's still a very long way to go. And that is evidenced by one, the number of people who actually leaving the profession within the first 3 or 4 years, the number of people who are talking about burnout, the number of nurses who are going into other areas of nursing that they control. So now we have a lot of nurse entrepreneurs and stuff like that. And a lot of that, while some of it is good, stems from the fact that where I work does not care for me, or I don't feel that it does. So there we have it.
Yeah, I agree.
There we have it.
Thank you.
My absolute pleasure. I'm so, I'm so sorry. You talk about armor. I have one last question. You talk about armor. Your headline says you're arming the next generation. Um, when I think of armor, of course, I'm thinking, metallic stuff. And some of us who are very soft, and very easygoing and very, how do we strengthen people like that? You don't have to be full on, you don't have to be Victoria. Right?
No,
To be
you do
Victoria, but you
not.
do have to develop your own armor. You do have to have armor without changing your personality. Right? So how do we do that for those people?
Okay, so yeah, that's such a great question. And but for me, I think of an armadillo. So rather than thinking of kind of your army shields
Yeah.
and regalia and all the rest of it, for an armadillo, they're a really soft, quietly spoken character that you do have opinion. But sometimes when you are weak, that's when you become almost bullied. So it's about having that armor to be strong enough to not listen to everything that comes your way and not always take it to heart. I know when I first started, criticism to me came in very different guises. Some people will passively criticize, some people will openly criticize. And it's about that building that critical thinking, that critical analysis that we were talking about earlier. And it's about knowing that if someone is challenging you professionally or encouraging you to do something differently, that is not necessarily criticism, it's encouragement and it's professional development. But some people can take that home with them and think that it was a personal reflection of their action
Hmm.
or something or a work task that they hadn't completed properly. So I think for me, when I say armor, it's about not taking everything personally or significantly to heart when you're in a professional situation. Say, oh yeah, that my manager challenged me. I don't agree with them, and I don't agree with what they challenged me on. But this is not a battle I need to fight. This is not something I need to do. I've got the armor to say, I'm just going to put that right back in your space, right back in your corner, and I'm going to carry on being me. I'm going to carry
Hmm.
on doing me. You haven't given me an evidence base in which I should change. I know I'm working in accordance to policy and protocol. So my armor for me is just the ability to say, okay, you're giving me opinion, I don't like it, so you can just have it back and not take it and not carry it, not bear the
Hmm.
weight of it.
Hmm. 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 And as you talked about it, that those two words came up again. You haven't given me the evidence-based arguments. And until you do that, I don't have to take it. Victoria, thank you so much for this conversation. We could go on talking for a long time.
I
Thank
think
you
we could.
so much for this. Are there any last words you'd like to leave us with?
Um, Oh, let me think. Yeah, I would. And that is, we talked really briefly before about changing the general public's perception of us as nurses
Yes.
and nursing as a profession. So, with my book, if anyone wants to read it, if anyone reads it or resonates with it or any part of it, I really have tailored it more so it's a narrative, but it's suitable for the general public as well. I want it to be a story that somebody, it's a story rather than just a professional recollection or a professional reflection. It's my life story, and I've been pretty vulnerable to be fair. But I think
Mhm.
it's that vulnerability that's made it a book that can be picked up and enjoyed, whether you're a nurse or not. So for anyone writing or journaling or wanting to publish, no matter what your content is or how you see it going out into the world, just have the confidence to start and the confidence to write it because there will be a reader out there that will resonate with your story. So be true to yourself and get writing. It's a great place to be.
It's a great place to be. It is a great place to be. And on that note, thank you so, so very much, Victoria. I truly enjoyed this conversation.
Thank,
Really, I did.
thank you very much.